Raw is the golden standard when it comes to nutrition for dogs and puppies as well. So if you just got a puppy or you are researching to get your first puppy and see when you can switch to raw, you're in the right place. I'm Micol. I'm a pet nutrition specialist, animal osteopath, and homeopath. And I have been a raw feeder for over 12 years. So the beautiful thing about puppies is that you can actually switch them to raw right away, cold turkey. When you bring them home, I would have some raw food already ready for them, and you can actually start offering it just automatically as what is eaten at your house. Now, keep in mind, if your puppy struggles a little bit with the switch between living where they're coming from, whether the shelter or the breeder's place and your place, you might want to have a little bit of the kibble that was being fed at your breeder's or at the shelter with you so that you can give your puppy a little bit of the comforts of home. It's not the best to mix raw and kibble together, but what you can do if your puppy is very young, so between 8 and 12 weeks, you can actually add a little bit of meat to their kibble, or you can just alternate one meal kibble and one meal raw until finally you fade out the kibble and they just eat raw. But most puppies will take to raw right away. There's two major schools of thought in the raw feeding community when it comes to deciding what to feed. There's the Barf diet group and the premade raw diet group. They're both basically the same in that they both believe in feeding raw meat and raw bones and raw organs, but the Barf group actually believes in giving some vegetables, usually low starch vegetables, as part of the diet. I feed my animals following the premade raw diet, but I'm also going to give you a couple of tips on how you can adapt that to the Barf diet. If you've researched the raw diet a little bit, you will have come up to the 80-10-10 rule. 80% should be meat, 10% should be bones, 10% should be organ meat. But if we're looking at puppies, we need to really kind of adjust those amounts, particularly to look at their nutrient needs and to look at their needs in terms of bones and cartilage, because obviously they're growing, so they need a little bit more support in that sense. So when it comes to bones, you should be feeding between 10 and 20% bone. Some feed even up to 25%. The same thing with organs. They should be fed at least 15% organ meat, and that should be divided in half between liver and spleen or kidney. When it comes to meat, it's going to fill up the remaining percentage. Now, if you are thinking of feeding vegetables, you need to add about 10% vegetables, and you're going to decrease then the amount of meat. But the amount of organs and bone are going to stay exactly the same. At this point, you might be wondering how you can be sure that you're feeding enough bone particularly, or you're feeding enough nutrients. Now, pet food manufacturers actually make it seem like it's really difficult to balance them, but it's actually fairly simple. And even balancing calcium and phosphorus, so the bone to meat ratio, is fairly simple for us because we're feeding raw and we're feeding whole foods. So they are more bioavailable so that they can be more easily digested than actually adding a powdered calcium to the food. So for us raw feeders, that balance is a little bit simpler. Generally speaking, keep in mind for puppies that it's really simple to kind of split their meals where half of them are going to be meat-based and the other half will have raw meaty bones, so bones that have some meat on them. And you can do this 50-50 split, or you can also do out of 3 meals 2 have bones and meat in them and 1 is just meat. When you are looking at what to buy to feed your puppy, keep in mind that, first of all, you should always go 1 protein source at a time so that you slowly add variety to their diet with the aim of adding as much variety as possible. You should also keep in mind that puppies' permanent teeth come in when they are between 4 and 5 months old. So before that time, you really shouldn't be feeding bones in the complete form. You should feed a ground up version of it. Think of it this way. Wolves will actually go hunting. They will eat and crush up the meal, and then the wolves who feed the puppies actually will come back and they will throw up food to let the puppies eat from it. So puppies who are very young, so under 4 months old, who cannot join the adults and go and find the prey, they actually get this kind of pre-digested and pre-chewed mix from the adults. So we want to try and mimic that and help them along. What you can also do to do something similar is to give your puppy some digestive enzymes. Usually they don't need them, but if you are feeding a brand new diet because they were eating kibble before and now you're feeding raw, giving them some digestive enzyme can be very helpful. Once your puppy's teeth are finally in, then you can go ahead and offer whole bones. Choosing bones is very simple. You have bones that we feed for nutrition and bones that we feed for fun or recreational bone. Now, the recreational bones are easy to choose because they should never be bones that are weight-bearing, so leg bones of large animals, but they should also be bigger than the diameter of your dog's skull. This way your dog is not going to be able to bite on it like this. They will have to go kind of sideways, and that will make sure that they won't damage their teeth. When it comes to bones that you can feed for nutrition, it really depends on the size of your puppy. If you have a small breed puppy, then you have the option of feeding rabbit ribs and rabbit legs, which are fantastic, and they work even if you have a breed of puppy that tends to be sensitive. So if you have a terrier particularly, be careful and really stick to rabbit. Now, if you have a mixed breed dog or a dog that's definitely not sensitive, you can also feed chicken. So necks, backs, and feet are actually fantastic for puppies. Now, if your puppy is more of a medium-sized to large-sized dog, then you can feed turkey necks, turkey backs, and you can also feed lamb ribs. Now, again, be careful and check how your puppy is eating them. And if you are choosing to give whole bones, you have to supervise your puppy. You're always going to have to supervise your dog whenever they are feeding whole bones, just to make sure, because bones can be a choking hazard. So when you're deciding how much raw food to give your dog, usually you go with the 2 to 3% of their body weight range. But this doesn't account for puppies who are small and they're growing. Puppies have higher nutritional needs than adults do. So how do you know how much to feed? Either you know how much your puppy is going to weigh, so your puppy might be a specific breed or a cross between breeds that you can kind of see and you can kind of guesstimate how much they will weigh. Or you can also ask your veterinarian. They will probably tell you what their ideal weight would be as adults. And then you can feed 2 to 3% of that ideal weight to your puppy. Alternatively, you can go with your puppy's current weight, and then based on their age, you can adjust it from 10% of their body weight all the way down to the 2 to 3% of what you will feed when they're almost fully grown. In any case, you will need to divide those meals from 3 to 4 meals when your puppy first comes home when they are 8 to 12 weeks old, down to 1 to 2 meals when they're fully grown. And I know what a big decision it is to decide how much your puppy should eat, because you feel that you don't want your puppy to miss out on the nutrition, but you also don't want to feed too much. And this is why the body condition score is really the easiest thing. So your puppy should be lean, but not too lean. And you can use this chart, which I've used myself to check on Iberia and make sure that she is staying fairly lean. If your puppy is around normal weight, then you're feeding enough and you're doing good. If your puppy is growing actively in that little period, then you can feed them a little bit more because you see that maybe they're a little bit thinner. And at the other end, if you notice that maybe your puppy is not growing so much, but they are putting on a little bit of fat, then you can slowly lower the percentage and adapt based on what your puppy needs. So as I said in the beginning, every puppy will have specific needs. So there's a couple of things that you can look at so that you can make sure that your puppy is getting exactly what she needs. The first thing is their poos. So they should be fairly solid. They shouldn't be running at all. They shouldn't be mucousy. They should be, fairly firm, and they shouldn't smell. Now, if your puppy's stool is too hard, like little pebbles, then you are definitely feeding too much bone. Also, if your puppy is not going to the bathroom at least once a day, then that is a little bit too much bone. So you want to kind of lower the percentage a little bit. On the other end of the spectrum, if your puppy has diarrhea or mucousy poo or it's soft, then it might be that either you're not feeding enough bone, so make sure, this is really important for puppies, that you are adding enough bone in their meals, or you have introduced some foods that they don't agree with. It could be organ meat, because organ meat sometimes tastes a little bit to get used to, so kind of increase the percentage slowly. And then it could also be that your puppy has food sensitivities and you're feeding some foods that they are struggling with. If you think that's the case, then I have a video for you where I talk about allergies in dogs and cats and what are the things that you need to look out for. They can also have soft stool and even diarrhea from worms. So obviously, when you're taking your puppy home, go and visit the vet, get your puppy used to being at the vet, and also take a stool sample and have them check on it so that you can be sure that your puppy is healthy. And then you also want to pay attention that you're offering enough variety. Because yes, you should be introducing foods one at a time, but it can be simple to get used to feeding a certain meat source and then never expand beyond that. You have to think that you are teaching your puppy what to eat and you're kind of developing your puppy's palate. So it would be great not only to offer variety, but also to offer some whole foods that you can add and they are complete as they are. Some of these foods are eggs that can be fed with the shell. So if you're feeding them together with the shell, they are complete. You can go with chicken eggs, obviously, but then you can also go with duck eggs. You can go with quail eggs, depending on what you have available and what your puppy can eat, depending on your puppy's size, of course. You can also add whole fish. It's fantastic. And again, because it's fed whole, you can consider it already balanced and you can add it on top of what you are already feeding and what you've already calculated. And then you can offer whole prey, such as mice, rats, chicks, and if your puppy is big enough, then rabbits. I think by now you figured how important variety is in your dog's diet. And when you're thinking of variety, also don't forget to offer a good variety of animal fat to your dog. Now I have a video where I talk about animal fat and why that's so important. And a little hint is that it can actually help prevent or cure cancer in dogs. So go ahead and check it out here. Give us a like if it was helpful and share it with somebody who might be getting a puppy and would like to transition them to raw. Thank you for watching us. Give your puppy a hug for us and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!